the rabbi was speaking recently. Maybe you're there in Jerusalem. Maybe you heard it. He was talking about the Nevi'ei Sheker, false prophets. So you don't have to have a false prophet to have someone who's extremely manipulative. Now, in the olden days, it was a good way to manipulate people and take advantage of people by invoking God, or in the olden days, gods, right, with a lowercase g, right? That worked. It was a way to gain money, power, women, whatever you wanted. As a matter of fact, that whole idea of demigods, the fact that the Pharaoh was a god king, and in other places also, that kind of helped their claim. If he's a god king, you don't even need a prophet. It's like, I am the god, and I'm telling you what to do, and I get to do whatever I want. So I can understand that. But nowadays, people aren't religious, even Goyim aren't religious, so you don't have to claim a god sent me, or the God sent me. Instead, what do you need to do? You just need to have charisma. There are people who are manipulative in all sorts of ways. So any form of political manipulation falls into this category. And that's why I'm I'm upset at these types of people. I remember the first idiot years ago, must have been 10 years ago, maybe even longer, 13 years ago. I ended up at a party. A family friend or a neighbor, whatever. I shouldn't have been there. By the way, Rambam says, Talmidei Chachamim stay away from gatherings of Amei Aretz. There's a good reason. I think that was when I took it upon myself. You don't hang out with certain people. You don't go to parties. It's not the smartest thing to do. You might be caught with really bad people. He was the first guy to tell me that, and this was a surprise, just to give you an example. Bruce Jenner, who had achieved world fame because he was an amazing athlete and he was a male, was now a woman. Okay? That's what he's going to do. That's what he said. And he's like, yeah, that's what I believe. Why? Because the TV told him. So I thought this guy was crazy. But then it went on for like another decade. They were telling us this thing. It became the thing you have to believe, right? That was manipulation. That was fault. That was the equivalent of false prophets manipulating people around the world, and even Jews who were ostensibly supposed to be keeping the Torah and who should know better. Just, well, this is the new truth. Like Yaakov Kershen used to say. You know Yaakov Kershen? Yaakov Kershen was a Jewish cartoonist here in Israel. Dry Bones. It was syndicated. Remember Dry Bones, Shuldig and Dubi? Yes, it was in other outlets. So Yaakov Kershen, proud Zionist. So he had a book. This book introduced me to Yaakov Kershen. I got it the day that the Lubavitcher Rebbe died at the Chidon Tanakh National Finals in New York at Ramah School. So that was a crazy day because the Rebbe died. So it sort of changed the whole plans and everything. It was the big things going on. Some people even deny that it even happened. But so I did not pass to the next level. It was pretty cool to actually go to the national finals. I guess they had. I should have studied better. I didn't know as a 12-year-old. It was like everything's all in Hebrew and everything like that. I think if I had prepared better, I could have done better. Obviously. Yeah. So, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was just a 12-year-old. So that day, as like a consolation prize, I got Yaakov Kershen's book. And there, basically gives a little bit of a Jewish history in comic book form. That was quite good. It used to make me cry. And there he talks about the new truth. He talks about, let's say, the Nazi movement in the days leading up to the founding of the state and the World War II. And he shows about how hard it was for Jews in Europe. And it was very easy for manipulative people, specific manipulative individuals, to convince nations to destroy Am Yisrael. Right? You could do that if you know how to speak right. So I am upset at the false prophets that say in this country who've convinced Jewish people of all sorts of crazy suicidal ideas. You know which ideas I'm talking about. I was just discussing them before. There are Jews who really believe that their enemy is not those who are trying to kill them and who are against whom they're fighting, but it's the Jews who are fighting back against that enemy. That's crazy. But whatever, that's what happens when you let yourself get manipulated. Or what about what's happening in America? These people, because they're so hateful of, let's say, Trump, which, by the way, you could dislike the guy, but they want to bring him down so badly in America with him that they've manipulated people into confronting law enforcement and getting themselves shot. You've probably read about these things. You've seen it. 2 people were shot dead because the TV told them to go to war against basically a police force, right? A heavily armed police force that's trained to use force. They have lethal weapons. That was stupid. But they get people to do this. There was another video you probably saw that woke up to this. A flash grenade. You know what a flash grenade? A stun grenade. So one of these manipulated people picked it up and tried to do something and got her hand blown off. Right? There are people making fun of her, but I feel sorry for the people who convinced her to do this. All sorts of crazy things. People are talked into doing things. Okay, I know of a woman who was basically a Haradite religious activist. The whole thing, mitpachat, hanging out in Haredi neighborhood, married with children, everything like that. Politically active, saved the kotel and stuff like that from the reformers, and thanks to being on the internet all day long, just walking around connected to the internet, she became one of those fat, blue-haired, lesbian Karen alphabet people. Really. And she was interviewed in the newspapers, like, here it is, my new name and stuff like that. You wouldn't have known her. I saw a picture of her that we found around the house from when she used to be normal. A regular young married Jewish woman with a sheitel. And I was surprised, and I felt sad, like almost tearing kriya. Like, this is what happened to a normal person who got brainwashed so badly, and this is what came out. One of those people, like a cartoonish, one of those people you hear about on the news. That's terrible. You should be the base matter, should not just let yourself get manipulated. So regular Jews have been, because of this color war thing, you tell them how far. They're color war blue. They're on the blue team. That's what they are, because that's what they read. So they're part of the color war. So they now believe all sorts of crazy political things because that's what blue team believes. Also red team. 10 years ago, blue team didn't believe any of these things. 10 years ago, that which the TV was telling them to believe as part of the blue team are what the red team says now. They don't have principles. They don't even know what they stand up for. I have friends who are like that. It makes no sense. So the most important thing is study the Torah and shut off all the outside influence. If you stick to, let's say, just studying the Talmud, Tanakh and Talmud with Chazal, you will find that you're basically staying put here, and everybody around you is changing direction. Sometimes they're there and they're there. Everybody's basically going in a circle. The right becomes the left becomes the right. All sorts of crazy ideas, new gods, new ideas, new truths. And you just stay right in the middle and watch it happen. We've been sticking to one truth for quite a long time. We've seen new truths pop up, right? You've seen all sorts of ideologies. I don't think anybody is still, let's say, an ideological ancient Egyptian, right? Pharaoh Ramses is gone. There's no one who, it says Notzrim in some Mefarshim. I don't think this is correct. When they talk about Notzrim in the Gemara and other places, they said Notzrim are not Christians, but what? Followers of some sort of Nebuchadnezzar religion. Netzar. So I don't know. They're not telling you what religion it was. The Rambam says there were the Saba, that religion, the idolatrous religion that Avram Avinu was familiar with, that the Canaanites practiced. That's what he mentions in Moreh Nevuchim a few times. And there are other ideologies that existed. They come and go, and sometimes there are new iterations of them, right? And there was Greek ideas. I don't think anybody is from the Aristotelian school anymore. Do you know of let's say a group that exists that they are practicing the philosophical and religious teachings of Aristotle? Is there anybody living like that anymore?
Philosophically, certainly.
Philosophically, not like religiously, lifestyle. No, there's no one. No, there's no group that holds him as their prophet anymore, right? Or their non-prophet. Where they used to say the Reform. What's their creed? This is in the 1970s. The Reform now believe there is no God, period, and Mordechai Kaplan is his prophet. So they come and go. These new ideas, they come and they go, and we're just here. Right now we see all sorts of crazy ideas. Just to know, those came, those are going to go. Don't get on board with them. They're nonsense. They're like the Avodah Zaras of all back then. Even certain forms of Christianity have already gone, right?
Most.
Yeah, most. And so now, like Rabbi Rabinovich Leheter said that a lot of the forms of Christianity today are not the kind that the Rambam recognized as just being straight out of Avodah Zarah, so they could be acceptable for Goyim at least. Islam's relatively new. New iterations of Islam are even newer. Certain liberal philosophies in the Western world are also relatively new. People actually practice them. Evangelical Christianity in the United States, pretty new, relatively speaking. Yeah. So do what you will. Don't get involved in all those other crazy ideas, those ideologies. Stick with what we have, and don't try to. By the way, I guess don't practice concordism. Don't try to fit those bad ideas with your own. Like somehow a radical vegan philosophy some people have. I can understand veganism of the Mekubalim and the Vilna Gaon, right? They have some sort of idea, Rav Kook. The veganism of, let's say, the American left, Californians, is not consonant with Judaism. It cannot be resolved with Judaism. Don't try to resolve that. Or your whatever crazy political philosophy you have. Communism, anarchism. It's not going to work with Judaism. Just stick to your Judaism, and you'll be fine. And you'll also be stable, and you'll see that everybody around you is, going with the wind. Maybe it takes a generation or two or 3 years, but you actually see people do this. Just like I saw people change in front of my eyes, adopt the craziest ideas. Yeah, that's what you have to do.